because really I never sit with them and spoke about my past, what I lived through. I had no guts to do that.
Ready? Will you please give me your full name, including your maiden name, and then when and where you were born?
My full name is Paula Olmer. My maiden name is Schwartz. I was born in January 26, 1925, in Poland, in a small town called Grzymalów. And it's 12 miles away from the Russian border. 3. In 1943, my mother walked over from the ghetto to the camp, and she knew she's gonna go. That's the last chance. She couldn't go in to speak to me, but through the wire fence, she stuck her hand through the wire. She put her hand on my head, and she blessed me. And she said, God, I beg you, leave something. Please, let her live. And that was the last time I saw her. The next day, she was killed. The clothes from the cemetery was brought to our camp, and we had to assort it. And her coat was among the clothes, so I know this is it. And I had typhus. I was so ill that they, from the nearby places, there was a lot of groups, we divided in groups, knew that I have typhus, and everybody was afraid to go near me.
Contagious, very contagious.
It was very contagious. Of course, there was an old man, at that time he must have been 50 or something.
Old man, 50, right?
And his name was Herschel Kutcher. He wasn't a nice man before the war. He was a gunner. And that's the truth. Not in my town, but in Scarlet. He was the one who said he couldn't talk, he didn't have one tooth in his mouth. And he said, I gotta give that girl a little bit of water and a piece of bread. And he picked me up by my hair. And he gave me a drink of water all the time. I shouldn't die.
Shouldn't dehydrate.
Dehydrate. Right where I was laying, I took a red sweater off, what was made by hands with all the colors, and I hanged it on that tree because I was full of lice. And it must have been my high fever. I am not exaggerating, but that seemed to me, when I looked at the tree, I saw my mother. I was imagining. Then, after a while, 2 men from Scarlet, they are alive, they are in New Jersey. Their name is Sass. They're 2 brothers. They came with big shovels to bury me because I was very sick and I didn't speak and nothing. And it must have something happened. I just woke up, the fever must have broke, and I made with my finger, I said, no, I'm still living. That's it. They left me alone. Then the next day, the Ukrainians came to look again for Jews. And they have to run. Everybody has to run. So they said, hey, leave her. She's dying anyways.
Right.
But the old man who gave me water took a big branch and he made a crutch like it on one side of my hand. I couldn't walk. And the other hand, he said, you hang on to me. Hold your hand on my neck. And my feet were dragging like a dead calf. And we ran like this for 5 miles, 5 kilometers, to another spot in the woods. And he saved my life. So I've been saved for so many things that sometimes, if I think about it, I start feeling myself and say, oh, is that true? I'm alive?
Right.
But if it's B'Shea, and if you have to live, you live. Yeah.
So basically, this is the first time that they'll be seeing and hearing
I
the
think
story.
they're going to hear that story word by word. Yeah. Maybe my granddaughter knows a little bit that my daughter was telling her about finding the coat.
Right.
Then when my mother was killed,
Right.
she wrote a thesis about it. But word by word, they didn't know. A matter of fact, last year, when we visited them and we went to Vermont, and on the way back, we took the auto train, and my granddaughter, my daughter, me and my husband, we all went to the Holocaust Memorial together.
In Washington.
Washington. And we walked through together, but maybe, were you in Washington? You saw the last paragraph is that when the survivors tell their story.
Right.
And my kids cried so hard, and my granddaughter says to me, Grandma, why didn't you ever tell me anything? I said, well, I didn't want to break your heart to tell you all about it, but someday you'll know. And I think I suffered enough for all of you.
Now, we discussed before about the death of your mother, and you told me that you have terrible nightmares about that. I'd just like to go over the coat and the experience you had, if it isn't too difficult for you.
No, my mother sheltered me a lot because I was one child only. And just because I didn't have sisters and brothers, I was very close to her. And I personally think that, in my mind, that she prayed for me, that I'm alive.
The last time you saw her was through the fence.
Yes, and I believe.
And then the coat reaffirmed the fact that she was gone.
I believe in that for the rest of my life.
So she's part of you. She lives.
is.
She lives with you.
Yes.
So your message to the future is what? What do you want the future to know about this?
The future to know about it is, if you see that people are anti-Semitic, don't let them go too far. Cut it off now and then. Don't let it go that far, because we were brought up in an anti-Semitic country, but we never believe it in a million years that this could happen. That was not only to kill a Jew or a few Jews or camps, they want to erase us from the world. If that would continue another few months, there wouldn't be nothing. He wanted to make a museum from the Torahs and everything, and they wanted to erase our name from this world, from all the Jews. And there's another thing I want to say. Every Jew who's alive in America should not ignore Israel. We got to do everything in our power to make that Israel should exist, because God forbid, if anything happens to Israel, we over here in America have nothing to do. They are our pride. They made us proud to be a Jew. And I'm very proud of them. And I'm going in September to Israel.